So earlier we were talking about one-step equations, and so this is basically the beginning of a two-step equation, but let's do a couple one-step equations just for practice. So let's say we got 2m equals 8, 3p equals, let's say, 12, and let's do 5 plus e equals 9. Okay. Now, what is the opposite of multiplying by 2? Because that's what's happening here. 2m means 2 times m. So what's the opposite of multiplying by 2? The opposite would be dividing by 2. So what you want to do is you want to apply the inverse operation. That would be your first step. Apply the inverse operation to both sides. Both sides of the equation. Okay, so we're going to divide 2. So the opposite of multiplying by 2 is dividing by 2. So if I divide this side by 2, I must divide the other side by 2. Now when you apply the inverse operation to what's going on here, it cancels each other out, all right? Like if you were to say 3 times 2 divided by 2. Well, we know that's 6. 6 divided by 2 is 3. You end up where you started, all right? You end up where you started right here. So if you apply the inverse operation immediately, you're going to get back to the same number that you started out with. So 2 times m divided by 2 is just m. This cancels each other out. All you're left with is m. And then you're left with the solution here to what m is. 8 divided by 2 is 4. So in this situation, 2 times 4 does equal 8. So that checks out. Alright, same thing here. The opposite of multiplying by 3 is dividing by 3. So we're going to divide both sides by 3. Right? Whatever I do to one side, do to the other side. This cancels out. Left with p. P equals, in this situation, 4 as well. So 3 times 4 equals 12. And that checks out. You're going to notice I used the same value for each variable here. I guess I couldn't get too creative, apparently. The opposite of adding 5, what's the inverse operation? What's the opposite of adding 5? What would be subtracting 5? So you're going to subtract 5 from both sides. This cancels out. You're left with e equals 9 minus 5 is 4. Plug it back into your equation. 5 plus 4, which was e, does that equal 9? Yes or no? Yes, it does. Checks out. So that's, again, just an example of one-step equation. These are just basic one-step equations, okay? Just going after the concept here. Two-step equations, much like what we talked about earlier in the first video, was 3h plus 2 equals 11. Just using that same equation. So remember, using order of operations to solve it, we go this way, right? Using the order of operations to solve it, we have the answer. We know the answer is 11. That's not what we're looking for. We're not looking for the answer. We're looking for part of the problem. Part of the problem is h. What is h? Right? So what we want to do is we're going to go this way in the order of operation. Right? Normally we would multiply first, and then we would add 2 to get to the answer, right? But again, we know the answer is 11, so we're not looking to do that. We want to go backwards in the order of operation. So normally you would do parentheses, exponents, multiply, divide, add, subtract, right? That's the order that you want to go. But we're going to go backwards now to solve the problem. So normally you'd multiply before you add, but since we're going backwards in the operation, we're going to add and subtract before we multiply or divide. Okay? So again, applying the inverse operation like we did for the one-step equation, what is going on to h right here? What is being done to h? Well, it's being multiplied first off. So I'm going to go ahead and put a little multiplication symbol in there. Okay, just so you can see that. And then it's being 2 is being added to h as well. So you have to think, okay, what is the opposite of adding 2? Okay, again, going backwards in the order of operation, we're either adding or subtracting now. So we want to do the opposite of adding 2. Okay, so we're going to subtract 2. But if I subtract 2 from this side, remember, just like a seesaw, whatever you do to this side, you have to do this side, right? If you take 2 pounds off this one side, you got to take 2 pounds off this side too. So you're going to take 2 off the other side. This cancels out. You're left with what on this side? 3 times h, or 3h, equals, and this will become 9. Then the next step, since you've added or subtracted, right, to get rid of this plus 2, now we're going to multiply or divide to get rid of this 3. So what is the opposite of multiplying by 3? Dividing by 3. So we're going to divide this side by 3, and then we're going to divide this side by 3. When you do that, this cancels out, and all you have left is h equals 3. And so how do we check this? Very simply, go back to your equation in the beginning, plug that 3 in where h is, and see if it works. Does 3 times 3 plus 2 equal 11? And utilizing the order of operations the correct way, like we normally would, doing multiply, divide before you add and subtract, 3 times 3 is 9. Does 9 plus 2 equal 11? Yes, it does. 11 does equal 11. We are good to go. 3 is the perfect solution for h. So this is just an example of a two-step equation. The reason why it's 2 steps, it takes you the first step to apply the inverse operation. That's the first step, right? You're either going to add, subtract to get rid of this. And the second step was to either multiply or divide to get rid of the coefficient, to get rid of this 3. So we can get the value for our variable here. So we're going to do probably one more video doing a couple different problems showing this two-step equation.